All right, first and foremost, I want to give call Allah Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai. All praises to the Most High God in the name of His only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. It's your brother, Tazapanya Yahweh, coming back at you through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai with another edifying video. I'm going to get short, straight, concise, and to the point. As you can see on the screen, Deuteronomy 28:68. This is a very popular verse that we use on the streets. More so, you might hear this come out when a brother is trying to edify a so-called black man, a so-called Southern Kingdom tribe, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, which would be your modern day Haitians, West Indians, and African Americans, right? But what a lot of brothers seem to not realize, and a lot of Israelites, whether in the truth or outside of the truth, seem to kind of look over that Deuteronomy 28:68 is also applicable to the Northern Kingdom just as well as the Southern Kingdom, because the Northern Kingdom got taken into slavery in 1492, which predates our enslavement of 1619. All right? So basically, that's what this video is dedicated to, the enslavement of the Northern Kingdom brothers. So we can also show that Deuteronomy 28:68 is not an exclusive curse to the so-called Southern Kingdom. Okay, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, your West Indians, your Haitians, and your so-called African American, black man, right? So let's go ahead get into it. Deuteronomy 28:68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. We know this is not talking about ancient Egypt, right? Because you don't need a boat to sail from Israel to Egypt or Egypt to Israel. We walked, into Israel from Egypt. Okay, so we know this is talking about another Egypt, all right? And it has to do with us going into slavery, okay? So let me look up house of bondage and get this scripture just to substantiate what I'm talking about. All right. This is Exodus 13:3. And Moses said unto the people, remember this day in which ye came out of Egypt, right? Out of the house of bondage. So we can see that Egypt is just synonymous with bondage, okay? It's another word for bondage, man. For by strength of the hand of Yahweh brought you out from this place. There shall no leavened bread be eaten. Okay, so we just came out of Egypt, and I think they're celebrating the Feast of Unleavened Bread that comes directly after the Passover. All right, so let's go back to Deuteronomy 28:68. Okay, Deuteronomy 28:68. And Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again, right? So you're going to go into slavery again. You got took out of slavery, but, further on down the line, this is a future prophecy. You're going to get taken into slavery again with ships this time. The first time, Israel went into slavery, we didn't go on ships, okay? By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. So, let's go into some history now, right? Okay. Hopefully my computer doesn't lag too long. Salakia in advance if it does. Ugh. Come on, pop up. Let's go. Here we go. So, as you can see on your screen, Seville, Spain, a legacy of indigenous slavery. You can find this on blackoutdoors.wordpress.com, right? Or you can just get on Google and type in indigenous slavery, So let's go down to the article and get what I need. I don't know why it's taking so long to scroll down. All right, here we go. Get a little bit more. All right. Standing outside Seville Cathedral, I debated whether or not to enter, as it was the Christmas season. Crowds of locals and tourists poured in and out of the sanctuary. What did the Taino make of the place when they saw it in 1496? The Taino, or the Arawak native, right? I don't want to call them Indian because they wasn't called Indian until Columbus enslaved them. Indian, etymologically, when you go into the meaning, it just means slave. It's another word for slave, okay? But that Taino that this article is referencing is talking about the so-called modern-day Puerto Rican man, okay, from the tribe of Ephraim, a Parian, right? Which means I am fruitful in the Hebrew. Let's keep reading. They were probably hungry and exhausted after their epic voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. The indigenous people from the Caribbean had sailed from Haiti near the end of 1495. They arrived in Spain a few weeks later. Then it was a long march from the port in the land to Seville, right? There were about 200 Taino in the group, chained together, right? Chained together. They were brought to Spain by Christopher Columbus to be sold in the slave market of Seville, right? So let's go back to Deuteronomy 28:68. And Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. We're going to bring you back into slavery. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen. Did we not just read that here? Let's go back to it. There were about 200 Taino in the group, chained together. Just like when you see, Roots and Goodbye Uncle Tom. Just like when you see our history, when we're shackled together, chained together on slave ships, guess what? It happened to the Puerto Rican man before it happened to you. Let's read it again. There were about 200 Taino in the group, chained together. They were brought to Spain by Christopher Columbus to be sold in the slave market of Seville. All right. Let's go down a little bit. Right here. Indigenous slaves in Spain. Salakia. This is not the kind of information that appears in tourist brochures and websites on Seville. Salakia. I too had to come to the marvelous city to admire the legacy of Moorish rule, right? And we know Moorish means black, and we know that the so-called black man, so-called black people of color, melanated people, ruled Europe and Spain, before the crackers did. Okay, that's basically, what's being referenced right there when it says Moorish rule. And just to throw it out there, all the Moors are not Israelites. We had a hand in that empire. The Moorish Empire consists of Israelites, Hamites, and the Arabs, man, the Ishmaelites. All right. But anyway, back to the article. The Alexar Palace, right? The winding streets and the cathedral, which started out life as a mosque. My tour was self-guided, meaning that I wandered around following anything and any street that caught my eye. The tour was going well until I met Christopher Columbus. Seville, Cordoba, and Cadiz were the three largest slave markets in Spain in the 1500s, right? That slavery was ancient and a holdover from the millennia-old Muslim rule of the country. In those days, the slaves came from Europe, Africa, and Asia. Okay. Where we at? Okay. The Taino were different. They were the first people from the New World. It's talking about over here in America, right? Because this is where Columbus came and found the Taino. The Taino was already here. All right. They were the first people from the New World to walk along Seville streets and straight to the auction block. Okay? So guess what? This means that it wasn't only, the so-called black man that went on the auction block. All right? The Puerto Rican man went on the auction block as well, man. Okay? All right, let's go down a little bit. Christopher Columbus, slave catcher, on his first voyage back from the newly encountered Caribbean, Columbus returned with 6 Taíno against their will. They were presented to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella as proof that a new world was across the oceans. So what did he do? He came and got those Ephraimites that were over here in the Americas and brought them back to this whore, Queen Elizabeth, as proof that, the Americas was real, right? Because at that time, the known world was just Africa, Asia, and Europe. They didn't know, about the Americas, okay? And Columbus didn't found a damn thing, because even when he writes in his letters, he tells you that, he met the natives that were here first. So, the Northern Kingdom basically founded America, man. All right. Not saying that nobody was here before them, but they were the first people to live and have a civilization here. All right. Everybody else just came, took resources, and left back to wherever the hell they went. You can read about that with Solomon's Navy, right? Solomon's Navy came over to the Americas, man. But that's another video for another time. What was we at? Okay. On the second voyage, Columbus took back the 200 Taíno. These were the survivors. Originally, there was about 1,600 captives in the group. As the belly of the ships could not hold all of them, Columbus parasailed out the Taíno to his cronies, setting up Spanish colonies in the Caribbean. All right. About 560 Taíno left for Spain, shackled in the belly of the ships, right? Shackled in the bellies of the ships, looted by the ocean, tormented by Spanish whips. Everyday Taíno bodies were tossed overboard. Okay? This sound familiar, don't it? The same thing happened to us in 1619, man. But this is before that, man. This is 1492. All right? By the time the ship arrived in Spain, less than half of the original number of Taíno were alive. We don't know the names of the indigenous people who trudged their way to Seville's slave market. It's an old saying that it is the victors who write history, right? Revisionist history. And that's true, man. These devils, when they conquered us, they even tell us in school that the Taíno man, woman, and child was killed off, right? That they was just, raped, robbed, and murdered out of existence. But that's not true, man. All right. They recorded their names and glory, and rarely the individual names of their victims, right? I am used to thinking of chattel slavery in terms of the Atlantic slave trade and the Muslim slave trade. Both grew fat from contact with the old world of Europe and the new world of the Americas. Okay? The proceeds from the spilling of African blood made the European and Muslim worlds rich. Okay? And it wasn't just, the African American blood who was spilt. All right? It was also the Latin Americans' blood who was spilled, the Native Indians' blood that was spilled, man. All right? And that's what we're reading about right here, right now in this article. All right? Just to prove that, man. Crossing the ocean. I was astonished to learn that the Taíno were the first victims of the Atlantic slave trade. Evidently, I was wrong when I thought I knew my history. See, here it goes right here. The Taíno journey was confounding as it was the wrong way round. They were dragged from the Caribbean to become slaves in Europe. Seville was always a rich and cosmopolitan city under Moorish rule. People from Africa, Europe, and Asia lived in the metropolis, studied at its famous mosques and universities, and gossiped about each other in the streets and cafes. Religious tolerance was the order of the day under Moorish rule. Thus, Muslim, Jews, and Christians mingled with relative freedom, and no doubt had affairs with each other too. Okay. Let's go down a little bit. Okay. Seville continued to occupy this plum position. Slovakia. Seville continued to occupy this plum position under the Christian reconquest of Spain. Slavery continued too. Most middle-class families had a slave or two. The upper class had more. In 1496, some of those slaves came from far, far away. Right? The Taino entered the slave market as a group. They had bonded in the belly of ships, trying to figure out what the Spanish savages were going to do next. This thin scrap of comfort was ripped apart in the slave market. The Taino were sold as individuals. Children were separated from parents, wives from husbands, friends from friends. Let me just go ahead and get the scripture right. No, Slovakia. Sons and daughters. One second. All right. Let me go down and find it right quick. Deuteronomy. Okay, this is Deuteronomy 28 and 41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. Okay, so we just read about that, man. They split the families up, man, of the Taino man, woman, and child. Okay, let's read it again. The Taino entered into the slave market as a group. They had bonded in the belly of the ships, trying to figure out what the Spanish savages were going to do next. This thin scrap of comfort was ripped apart in the slave market. The Taino were sold as individuals. Children were separated from parents, wives from husbands, friends from friends. All right. Scroll down. All right. I tried to imagine a Taino walking behind a Spanish barbarian on their way to a new hell as a slave in the house, and I'm glad they use this type of verbiage. This shows you, that hell is a condition, man. All right. It's not some place that's under the ground. Another definition for it is it's also a grave, right? But this is talking about a condition, man. All right. This is talking about the Taino's hell, their experience of being took captive by these damn devils, okay? The Portuguese, the Spaniard, the Edomite, man. All right. As a slave in the house, perhaps the Taino woke up in the morning to clean the house and swept the yard. Later, they may have gone to the market with another slave to buy fruits and vegetables. If they were lucky, they might have glimpsed another Taino there too. Did they have time to whisper a few words in their own language, or did they simply look at each other and in that glance wondered how to get back home to Haiti, or how many more levels of hell they had to endure in the land of the blood spillers? Okay. Word soon spread in the markets and cafes of Seville. The Taino were not good slaves. They kept dying, right? And why in the hell did they keep dying, man? Because they wasn't getting any type of food, any type of good treatment, man, to sustain, themselves for the type of rigorous work that they was under these damn Edomites, man. All right. Within months, nearly all of the 200 Taino were dead. Whippings and beatings. So not only are you not feeding them, probably not giving them any water or anything either. On top of that, you're whipping the hell out of them, man. All right. And then you're wondering why they're dying. Not enough food. Disease took the biggest toll, as the Tainos had immunity to European sickness such as mumps, measles, and the biggest killer of all, smallpox. Okay? So when the white man came, the white man is the cancer of the earth, man. All right? Before they came in contact with the white man, they didn't have any contact with mumps, measles, any of this stuff, man. All right? The white man is the cancer of the earth, and sooner rather than later, I pray that he's wiped off the face of the earth, man. All right? By Hashem HaMashiach, I was shot. Anyway, still, other European sea captains brought thousands more indigenous people from the Caribbean and the Americas to Seville's market for humans. The Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian merchants were the top slave traders, okay? Seville Cathedral, from mosque to church. Seville Cathedral, like most of the spectacular architecture in the city, was built by the Moors. The cathedral started life as a mosque. When Ferdinand and Isabella came to power, everything that was Muslim was either converted to Christian or destroyed. But the Muslim element survived in one way or another. It is impossible to destroy 1,000 years of history by a new rule. Many despots have tried this trick since millennia, and none have yet succeeded. All right. Let me go down. Okay. I walked around the cathedral admiring the the scores of small minarets on the upper facade. It was a typical decorative feature of Muslim architecture. The huge La Giralda, or bell tower, used to be the main minaret of the mosque. From in the muezzin called the faithful to prayer, the Christian chiming bells had replaced the Muslim human voice. Seville Cathedral is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is the largest cathedral in the world and can comfortably hold a few thousand people. La Giralda is the iconic symbol of the city. The cream-colored bricks of the sanctuary shimmered in the afternoon sun. All right, let me go down. I decided not enter. The tomb of Christopher Columbus is the main tourist draw in the cathedral. His voyages to the Caribbean was the Salakia, I cannot say that word. Looks like crucible. Okay, the rehearsal space for what was to come in the mainland of the Americas. I was not ready to meet the man, the symbol of the apocalypse in my world. Let's scroll down. Okay, and that's the end of the article, basically. But, that article said a lot, man. And like I said, that's called Seville, Spain, a legacy of indigenous slavery, man. All right. So just to close out, let's just get it again, man. This is Deuteronomy 28:32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. Right? Deuteronomy 28:41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. Right? Deuteronomy 28:53. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thy own body, and Salakia, the flesh of thy sons and thy daughters, which Yahweh thy power have given thee in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. You know, all these curses, man, along with Deuteronomy 28:68, are applicable to the so-called Puerto Rican man, just as well as it's applicable to any Southern Kingdom tribe, you know, that you're going to apply it to. All right? You know, all of us got taken to slavery, man. Okay? Just know that the so-called Puerto Rican man, the Cuban man, you know, and the rest of those tribes, they went into slavery before you did, man. All right? Theirs took place in 1492. Ours took place in 1619. You know, and I just wanted to shed light on that because I feel it doesn't come out enough, you know. But us at the Sakari, we love our Northern Kingdom brothers. Matter of fact, we was just in Humble Park this weekend that just passed for the Puerto Rican Day Parade, man. We went out there 2 days in a row. All praise to the Most High, man. It was very good, you know, and it felt, we were blessed, you know, to be a part of, you know, going out to teach the word of God in the midst of our people. Okay, mainly it was Ephraimites, but it was a couple of Issacharites, you know, in the mix, as well as a lot of the sisters. A lot of the Ephraimite sisters had Judite boyfriends, all right? Well, so-called boyfriends, you know, but they're in the world. So, you know, I'm pretty sure they don't consider that to be their husband, but, you know, it is. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out. You know, it's about 30 minutes. I thought this I didn't want this to last more than 10, but, you know, everything is through the spirit. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this video and say, call Allah Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai and Shalom.